So how did the project evolve from and compared to then versus how it finally came on screen?
Well, when I first started it, it was like, I was in the college experience. So that's all it was to me. It wasn't meant to be, a microcosm of America. And it really wasn't meant to be the satire of a bigger experience. I was just putting my experience up, out there because no one else was. And it was the experience that myself and all the other people of color in my generation were kind of having. This feeling of having to sort of toggle up and down aspects of your identity for different groups of people to get on and to get ahead in life. And that's really what it was. It had a lot more characters. It was terrible. It had no focus. They don't really teach you in film school how to write a multi-protagonist story because, frankly, those don't make money. Those aren't typically the things that Hollywood is looking for. So, but it was the beginning. It was the basis. And as I kind of got, grew up and became a hopefully slightly better writer and stepped away and did other things and came back, it kind of took on more of a satirical tone. It had more of a sort of political kind of edge to it. And it stopped being so much about my specific college experience and about, the interplay of identity and how sort of the relationship between identity, who we are, and what our potential is in American society. And it became about a bigger thing for me as I sort of, figured out how to write it better.
In a way, was it like the times caught up with what you were doing?
That's the other thing. It's I had a college screening and there were girls from Harvard and they were like, I know it's a satire, but this is my life. And it's crazy to me that things that I was writing, 2006 through 2011, hyper reality, satirical, pushing the edge, above and beyond what normally happens. Seeing real life catch up to that is it's both, it affirms that the movie needs to happen, but it's also a little horrifying, when that happens. So it's a double-edged sword, I guess, in that way.
Justin, did you ever see yourself being in the seat 5 years ago?
I did. I can't say I knew it would happen. Like, it wasn't like that, I'm a neurotic person, but I dreamed of it. I certainly dreamed of it. I knew it was something that I wanted so badly, and it was something I would refuse to sort of take no for an answer for. And I knew that whether Dear White People or any movie happened in 5 years, or if it happened in 50 years, like, that would always have to be the thing I was shooting for. Because I've just known for too long that this is what I wanted to do, I was one of those kids that was sort of blessed and cursed by knowing what I wanted to be at an early age. And it's just sort of taken me this long to figure out how to do that, how to get there.
Can you take us to the day that you decided to say, no more this publicity nonsense, I'm done? Or did you step out on faith, or how far were you into getting the film done, or you just were like, I can't go back to work?
It was 2011. No, it was 2010. And Stephanie Elaine, who eventually came on to executive produce the film, was looking for a film like this one. And the draft that I had at the time just wasn't ready. And so I couldn't give it to her. And I kicked myself up and down the streets of Los Angeles for, having taken that long to sort of ruminate and write here and there on the script, but not have it ready to go. And it was that feeling, combined with a couple pep talks from my best friend and producer on the film, Lena Waithe, it just made me feel like, I can't, if the movie doesn't ever happen, like, I can't go another year not trying to get it to happen. And it was really around that time that I sort of like closed the windows and locked the doors and stopped going out and made it my business to understand how these films work, and figure out how my film could work and how, I could get a version of it out there. And really, after that point, it was just taking the next available step. And, that one of the next available steps, okay? I'm having trouble with Sam White's jokes. She needs more materials. Let me start Dear White People, the Twitter account. Let me test out her jokes. I really like the screenplay. I think we're in a really good place, but nobody's looking for this. Nobody can easily identify what kind of movie I'm making because it's been so long. Let me do a concept trailer. Let me put that concept trailer on YouTube. And if there's an audience for it, let me give them something to do about it. So I gave them a goal of giving me some money if it resonated with them. And they did that. It was just taking the next step, and for me, it wasn't like this grand master plan of like, okay, I'm gonna have a Twitter account, I'm gonna do this. Because you can have these master plans and they just don't work out. It was just like, what can I do with my resources? Cool, that's what I'll do.
Talk about your Sundance experience and going to LA Film Festival experience.
Yeah.
Two different things.
Very different things. Sundance, it was kind of terrifying because I had never made a movie. I had never had a movie to premiere anywhere, let alone Sundance. And, you know, the industry idea is that, oh, everything plays at Sundance. But there was a real question of would this movie play at Sundance? Because, you know, it's called Dear White People, but it's about the black experience. But there's like 3 black people in Sundance. And there was this big sort of like, you know, what's going to happen? Who's going to buy it? Is anyone going to be interested? And so that was, you know, horrifying, but then very gratifying because I saw screening after screening, you know, audiences of mostly white people identifying with these black characters, and it wasn't because they were tragic characters that were slain in the streets anywhere or, you know, in the past, and because there was like a sense of guilt over it. They just really, they're like, oh yeah, I know that she's going through weave situations and like trying to in contacts to figure out who she is, but I totally identify with this girl. Like, that was super gratifying. And then to go from there to a more mixed crowd, I'll say, at Los Angeles Film Festival, and have conversations with, you know, film goers who just enjoyed the film, but also like black people who just never seen themselves before in a movie, and were having a complicated black experience that was not represented in the cinema, and kind of sort of not represented on TV either. Just to sort of the experience of them seeing themselves and telling me how much that meant to them when I was them back in 2006, wondering like, why am I nowhere in the culture right now? Very, very gratifying and moving experience. I mean, I couldn't have orchestrated it. You know, it's bigger than me, and I'm just grateful and trying not to fuck it up.
Do you think your PR marketing background has helped you maneuver through this?
It definitely has helped me maneuver through it. You know, I kind of know what to do in a situation like this. You know, I know to have something to say because I've been on the other side of it and heard people not know how to answer a question, and it's so painful. You know, but I think a lot of it is instinct. Like, you know, I remember being a publicist and feeling like we would come up with all these master plans, but then like, you know, it would either happen or it wouldn't happen. So I kind of know not to come up with the master plan per se, but I have an instinct for what may or may not work, and that has served me very well, for sure.
Has there been anybody that's come to you and expressed something or got something that you didn't even intentionally put into your film?
Wow, yeah, I have, which is cool because, you know, first of all, there's a lot of really smart black folks out there that have not had a chance to sink their teeth into a smart black movie about the contemporary black experience. And so some people come into it with a lot of extra stuff where it's like, why did you talk about this? And what about the feminist movie and all this stuff? I'm like, listen, I couldn't tackle that this time. But when you make your movie, I will be first in line to see it. I will raise my hand and ask you a nice question at the Q&A because I'm dying to see these movies as much as you are. So that's cool to see like a hyper intelligent audience like really want to devour and talk about the themes of the movie. And then, you know, I've had the occasional you know, white audience member that maybe too closely identified with someone they didn't want to and felt some kind of way about it and needed a second to process and try to process that with me in the lobby, and it can be a little uncomfortable, but at the same time, like, I feel like it means I'm doing my job.
Well, you kind of realize you're setting yourself up when you make a movie that's dear white people.
you can complain about it, but at a certain degree, I kind of asked for it.
Right, right.
I mean, I can just go, you know, I have to look at, you know, moviegoing is a subjective experience. Everyone's going to have a different one. But the majority of people who come out of this movie, regardless of race, regardless of age, regardless of gender, are getting it and connecting with it in some meaningful way. And that I will take with me. The rest of it, hey man, that's sort of out of my control. You know, that's, everyone needs to have their individual experience. And you know, this black scholar that I was kind of talking with on the road, she was telling me, like, you know, waking up to racism in current America, where racism is not as obvious as it used to be. It's more covert. It's more, you have to kind of look at the numbers to see it sometimes. You know, for some people, they have to go through the stages of grief, and the first stages of grief are anger and denial. And if people are having an anger denial moment while watching my movie, that's okay. At least they've begun the stages, you know, and that's the best I can do. I'm not an activist. I'm a storyteller.
What character are you in this movie?
I think at this point in my life, I'm all of them well integrated, or at least better integrated than they were in college. I think in college, I certainly entered as Lionel, like kind of intimidated by like the black kids in the BSU, and I left more Sam, like comfortable and very much like associated with my blackness, and you know, almost to the edge of militancy. But then as I entered the workforce, I was a bit of a Troy and I was a bit of a Coco. I kind of had to shuck and jive my way around certain situations, and so I feel like I've been all of them. And now I'm a character I haven't written yet, because when I started writing that I was 22, 21, and now I'm 31. It's time
So
to-
now that you're at this point with this movie, what will be next for you?
I think I always have to be saying something about the human condition, because I kind of can't help but crack a joke when I sit down to write. I think that will probably come out satirically. I'm writing a satirical genre movie right now that I'm really, really excited about, and I'm attached to a couple sort of like studio projects that's very exciting, and I'm really committed to sort of seeing these characters through, and I believe that these characters ultimately belong on television, where we can sort of on a weekly basis, peel back the layers of everything that's going on in this world. So that's what I've got going on next. But as long as I get to say something that I feel will provoke a conversation, get people to see themselves in ways that they hadn't before, I'm good. So if I can keep looking and finding ways to do that, then I'm a happy man. And I will plug that there is a Dear White People book that I wrote somehow magically found the time to write during this process as well, that I'm really proud of, and it's available. So
And by book, is it stuff that came off Twitter? Is it another story?
Yeah, it's a book of essays, sort of based on the themes in the movie. But it's also not it's not this work of literary it's not a literary exercise. It's essays, but it's also personality quizzes, and it's also just as satirical and tongue-in-cheek as the movie is. So it's fun as well as maybe a little controversial, and just kind of riffing off of some of the ideas in the movie.
For a minute, it sounded like chicken soup for the white people.
There you go. Oh, yeah. Well, it's here. I'll show you the.
No, please do. We need some visual
I think I
aid.
gave my other copy to Tiana. Good one with the. Yeah. Many schools have come up to me and approached us to talk about like bringing the film to the campus and bringing us back. I mean, we're kind of like booked through next year, sort of going to college campuses and talking about the movie, and that means the world to me. And one of the cool things is one of the screenings in Sundance, this woman stood up and said this needs to be required viewing for Fortune 500 companies, and for their diversity programs, because this more accurately talks about what's going on than our current diversity training. And if the film can have a legacy like that, I mean, that's icing on the story's always cake.
The book reminds me that there's so many anecdotal situations, and is this mine?
No, it's not, but you can
That's
take a look
fine.
at it.
In the film, and I guess they kind of translate to the book, are these situations like, do I tip even though I'm getting sucky
Yes.
service, or somebody reaches in my hair? Are these things that you've experienced personally?
Of course. Yeah, no, of course. Experienced and sort of have been reported to by my other friends. It's a funny thing to sort of navigate a world where culturally your identity is everything. Like your Twitter followers and the way you're presented and your own version of your media is everything, and in many ways limits your potential sometimes if it's not the right way. For a person of color, or for a woman, or a person of any sort of marginalized community, it's so tricky, like bobbing and weaving other people's assumptions about you to sort of like to go in a straight path. And that's been my experience, and I think the more people are sort of open to other people's experience, the more we realize we're all kind of having the same experience. We're having variations of the same theme. And that's me just doing my part to sort of bring that conversation up to the culture.
What did you learn as a publicist, and what are you learning now as a writer-director?
I think there's a movie that you publicize and there's a movie that you write, and I think that it's important to know your audience to a degree, but being obsessed with your audience and what they might think and what they might say when you're in the room writing the screenplay, that can be detrimental. You can't pander. You can't sort of feel the spotlight of being I couldn't feel the spotlight of being a spokesperson for the black race when I'm sitting in there just trying to tell the truth, my sort of like writer cubbyhole. But at the end of the day, you do have to figure out how to sell the movie. You have to figure out how to sort of package the movie. We're selling this movie as this very pop culture now zeitgeist conversation about race politics. That's how we're selling the movie, because that's on the lips and the minds of the characters. But what the movie really is this small story about identity. And it's a story that we all kind of live in some way. But that version of the movie, which it is, and the other version of the movie, which it also is, one of those things gets butts in seats. And especially for like an independent black film that's complicated and strives to be complicated and takes pride in being complicated, those are difficult to sell to an audience that frankly isn't used to this kind of film. We haven't had this kind of film in a long time. So it's helped me. It's helped me to be able to like put one hat on and sometimes take that one off and put a different one on.
But the projects that you have coming up, because you were able to use some fresh faces in this film, do you feel like your hand is going to be forced to have to use maybe bigger names or, attach stars?
I mean, it all depends on the goal of the project. If we're talking about movies that are commodities, where like, there's an investment being made because we need to make some money back, and that's the intention behind the movie, then I think you are beholden to work within the star system. If someone offers me Star Wars tomorrow, I got it. I get it. We're gonna need to put a couple. Okay, cool. I understand. But like it just depends on the story and the intention behind the story. The intention behind this story was not necessarily to make a bunch of money. Although I hope it does, and I hope that it proves that audiences are willing to embrace material like this. That wasn't really the goal, and that was really liberating as a storyteller because it meant that I could always just pick the best people for the role, and I wasn't. Frankly, when you're making a black movie, there are maybe 3 names that actually get you money and get you, independent financing. So if you don't get one of those 3 names, then cool. Kind of cast whoever you want. And that's kind of nice too.
Has Spike Lee seen this yet?
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard from him. So I don't know if he has.
I have to ask this because you used it and you touched on it in the film.
Yeah.
And here it says, reality TV is the new blackface.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you said it.
I don't remember. I don't know what you're talking about.
What do you tell us how you really feel about? I mean, I'm sure everyone in here has an opinion about a network that plays a lot of reality television with our faces on it that we won't mention. What do you really feel about that now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it being called reality is troublesome because for some people that is the way real life is. For some, people of color who grow up watching these images over and over again, and it's real people, it's not scripted, that's what they aspire to be, or that's what they kind of subconsciously feel like they have to be. And then for people who have no actual contact with people of color, that's what they assume we're all like. And in that way, it operates a lot like, the minstrel shows of yesteryear operated. And as I kind of thought about it, I realized that they actually used a lot of the same tropes. In some ways a housewife is a mammy and a zip coon is very close to some of these sort of like pet gay black characters that are sort of in the lives of the housewife, and I just saw this correlation, and I think part of the idea that it's reality sort of absolves us from the fact that no, these people are handpicked by producers and written for and then edited down and encouraged to play up certain aspects of themselves for entertainment value. But the rest of us are sort of absorbing this as real life, and it's a little dangerous. And I say this as a person who, full on has at least 3 of these kind of shows ready to go in my DVR. But I think we have to at least pause and ask the question. But I think in a lot of ways, yeah. In the same way that black actors in the minstrel circuit were encouraged to literally black up their faces and shuck and jive and play into these stereotypes, so are regular people who are sort of, pruned for these reality shows. They are also kind of encouraged to black it up and to weave, pull, and drink splash a little bit more than they maybe would in everyday life. And I think if that's going on and we're not talking about that or admitting that that's what's happening, that's when we're in trouble, because then we're susceptible to believing and sort of thinking this is actual life and these are actual people.
If you get carte blanche to having studio access, actors, financing, what is your dream project?
Oh God, I'd really like to do something science fiction. I'm a big nerd. Like that conversation in the movie about how Star Trek is secretly a black. I've had that conversation. Okay, I've been on the losing argument in that particular argument. So I think any, I don't know if this is true, but I think a lot of storytellers sort of dream to do their Star Wars, dream to do their big, splashy, epic that's meant to be about all of us, but is super digestible by all audiences. I want to do that big movie too. And I've got one in me, so, holla at me. But this one has to be successful first, so we'll see.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Good night.
Appreciate it, thank you. All righty.
Oh yeah, there's your look.